Happy Monday, everybody. Welcome into Concrete Jungle, a New York baseball podcast here on FingerLakes1.com. Paul Russo and Kyle Evans here with you as always. Kyle, quite the weekend of sports in general, but of course, as I think luck would have it, we got a couple of our New York teams kind of doing that weird, what I call last-minute push towards the postseason. And we'll jump into it because there's a little bit of varying degrees. We'll also talk about a couple other major things kind of regarding the pitching staffs of both teams, to be honest with you. And then some roster updates and stuff like that. Rochester and Syracuse as they enter their final week of the season. Still a lot to get to, but a good weekend for you, Kyle. I know you're feeling very good on the step overall here, but nothing crazy, kind of low-key, or kind of your typical weekend at this point?
Yeah, it was a pretty good weekend. My teams did pretty well. My betting did pretty well. So yeah, just again, I mentioned this a lot, but with all the stuff going on now, the weekends just go by so quick.
Yeah.
And that's good. Honestly, I love it. There's a lot to do. You're not, bored or sitting around. Games all weekend, nonstop from afternoon to night. It's great. How was your weekend?
Can't complain. Syracuse, nice win. The Mandos got a nice win. And, I thought the Yankees looked pretty good. I thought the Mets looked pretty good, too. So, can't complain, I guess, too much overall. But before we get any further, I think a couple of our sponsors for today's podcast begin with Generations Bank. Generations Bank has been serving the financial needs of the Finger Lakes region since 1870. Generations combines the best of modern banking with dedication to our local communities. Whether you are looking for a checking account, CDs, a home improvement loan, you name it, we have what you need. We are committed to serving and giving back to our communities. You can visit us online at mygenbank.com. Generations Bank, member FDIC, and equal housing lender. And the Cayuga Lake Wine Trail. From the first sip to your last look at the lake, the Cayuga Lake Wine Trail will impress and inspire you. As America's first wine trail, you will truly choose your own path when you visit the winery. Soak in the scenery and make memorable moments with friends. You can plan your trip online at CayugaWineTrail.com. So, let's jump into this, Kyle, here. Let's begin with the Yankees, who split the doubleheader Thursday with Boston, then head down to Pittsburgh and took 2 of 3 there. So, our predictions were kind of at least like in the middle a little bit. I know I said sweep of Boston. I thought, I did think I feel like I said the Pirates would be more pesky maybe than they were, but either way, I thought, really collectively, and even I'd say game 1 against Boston, in which the Yankees lost. I didn't think the pitching looked bad in that game exactly, but I thought pitching collectively overall through the weekend looked really good for the Yankees. And I think maybe that's a little bit of a blind spot because we're going to talk about Rodon here, obviously, more in depth here in a second, but especially given what happened with Anthony Mashevitz, which we'll get to obviously here in a minute anyway. He's on our injury notes side of things. I thought all things considered, the Yankees pitching looked really good. Offensively, again, maybe a little bit more to be desired at this point in the year. But I don't know. I think it's a hard outright thing to complain about the Yankees right now, given where they kind of stand and what we've expected from them, because now, to me, it's via the pitching. I mean, they're kind of making this last-second push to the playoffs a la it's funny we talked about the way we did, right? A la 2016 in a way. When they definitely sold off there, but we wrote them off. And next thing you know, they make this late surge to the playoffs, and they're kind of doing it again this year in a way.
Yeah, and the thing with this is, there's 12 games remaining, so it doesn't look great. But with them playing the Blue Jays still 6 more times coming up, 3 at home, 3 on the road, things could get a bit interesting. They're 6.5 out now, and it could only be 5.5 if they finish off the sweep. But if they say they go 5-1 or somehow win all 6, which obviously is very tough, it could get really interesting. And I don't know if people realize this. I just actually did some research here. Since August 28th, the Yankees have the best record in baseball at 14-6. The next closest is the Marlins, 12-7. So since August 28th, the Yankees have been the hottest team in baseball. So they're playing well at the right time, and they're still playing pretty well, even with, like Jason Dominguez going down and all the bullpen injuries. And their pitching still performing pretty well. There's times where the offense, like in that first game of the doubleheader, didn't show up. But yeah, I think it's encouraging to see this group still fighting, still trying, still making every game be a big deal.
Yeah, and maybe this is where we can kind of jump in on specifically with the Rodon thing, right? Because we did talk about Thursday, right? We only have, and now it's obviously only have 2 starts really left of Rodon after yesterday. And I know he took the loss, and that first inning, not great for him, obviously. But when you look at the final stat line for him, though, 6 innings of work, the 2 earned. He only gave up 2 hits, walked a few, but again, another really good strikeout rate for him. I thought he looked really good again, and I think that's the case of Kyle, what we just talked about a little bit, right? The offense is kind of not really supporting him. In fact, the only run support offensively for the Yankees didn't come until, the start of the 7th inning, when that kind of ticked off a little bit. So, to me, it's like one of those deals where you look at it, it's like, damn, we might be looking at a different story if the offense kind of got going a little bit sooner yesterday. We might be talking about a Rodon win as opposed to in a Yankee sweep, as opposed to, they take 2 of 3 against Pittsburgh, and that's great, but it kind of makes that, like the mountain you said, Kyle, a little bit tougher to maybe try and make that last push on.
Yeah, and it's just more frustrating because it was a bullpen game for the Pirates, so they were kind of mixing and matching the whole way, and yeah, just couldn't find enough offense. And again, they had a chance to sweep the Tigers twice. Just a couple weeks ago, they just had a chance to sweep the Pirates, and this is where it probably is going to come down and hurt them. They're not finishing off sweeps against teams that they're clear, way better than them, and then one-run games. They're not winning the one-run games. They're 17-23. So just those little stats, those little things right there, probably are going to be the difference in them making the playoffs.
Yeah, I mean, and that's the thing too, right? It's obviously, we can talk about the stuff in the past month, but that is the stuff that has happened kind of all year, right? And obviously it's easy to maybe pinpoint 1 or 2 things, but when it's just kind of collectively built like that, I mean, that's just the story of your season.
And also,
opportunity.
Losing 9 in a row, that honestly, that's killing them
that's
too.
Not the point.
Even if they just went 2-7, I mean, they literally lost 9 in a row, and that's just tough to overcome, especially with all these good teams in the AL right now.
I mean, last year Rochester was at the top of the International League in the start of June, went on a 19-game losing streak, and they just didn't recover throughout the year. So, yeah, I mean, and it's interesting too because even though maybe collectively or individually rather, the youth, the Utes, they aren't playing uber great. They've all had really good individual moments that I think are kind of helping fuel this late season push in a way. Again, a la 2016, to be honest. And it's good to see. I know Oswaldo went deep, obviously, and Volpe went deep, but I think you're kind of finding, I think, a little bit right. Part of it is just the guys kind of just getting at bats. And one thing I want to ask you, Kyle, because for me personally, I thought it was great putting Florial as the cleanup guy over the weekend, and the Saturday game sticks out for me for it, right? Kind of why not, right? Just kind of see what he can do there. Let him see the pitches that a guy in the 4 spot would get. What better time than right now to kind of see it where you're giving the guys the opportunities anyway, and why not? Frankly, why not let them live in the moment and have these opportunities, right?
Yeah, and he delivered right away. He had a 2-out, 2-run single in that first inning. Got the Yankees out to a 3-0 lead, and then they went on to win that game. And yeah, I do like him hitting up there in the lineup. I like the way Oswald Peraza has been hitting the ball. He's heated up quite a bit since his 2 for 37 stretch. Austin Wells had a couple doubles over the weekend. One in the 9th inning yesterday that tried to spark a rally. So yeah, the kids haven't been great, but Austin Wells and Oswald Peraza are starting to get to that spot.
Yeah, let's talk about a couple of different roster news here and injuries. Begin with Anthony Mashevitz, the comebacker Friday night. 100 miles per hour back to him, and I always defer to you in these situations, Kyle, because you were a pitcher and everything like that. There's just no time to react for stuff like that. And at the moment, he's placed on the 7-day concussion list, injured list. They're still waiting to get some results back. I know he did travel with the team back to New York last night, technically, on Sunday. But, situations like that, Kyle, obviously, right, there's just no time to react. And especially Pittsburgh has a really – I'm not saying it's anything like it's like cursed, right? But some of the worst ones we've seen have happened like at Pittsburgh. I mean, the one for me that always sticks out is Dan Jennings with the Marlins. Now, it has to be pushing well, not quite 10 years, but we're looking at about 7 or 8 years ago at this point with that. It's even, a few days before the Yankees came into town, there was one even that got a guy. So, it's one of those things where you just don't have the time to react. And all things considered, you rather, and this is something that I don't think a lot of people realize, you rather have the ball kind of go the distance that it did off Mashevitz. Like, the energy was not dissipated on his head, and it could have been a lot worse if it hit him right and the ball just kind of dropped right near him, as opposed to where it just literally shot out to right field.
Yeah, I mean, obviously I haven't been watching baseball as long as you, but I don't know if I've ever seen a ball travel that far off from a pitcher that got hit.
Few and far between. I've seen a couple where they've made it to the outfield, kind of like that, but they're compared to the others, it's a rarity.
Or usually it would kick over to the first baseman, right, or up the middle of the infield. But yeah, I was like, wow. And in real time, I was like, man, this guy is seriously hurt. And then when I saw him get up, I was like, well, that's very encouraging. And then only to go on the IL with a concussion, I thought, wow, he caught a break there. No broken bones, nothing major. So yeah, that was good to see. And he pitched pretty well in his first few games as a Yankee. Got out of a big spot in Boston, in a high leverage spot, helped the Yankees win that game. That was the game where McAllister and Bowman came in.
Yep.
So yeah, that was tough to see, but hopefully he's doing all right. And 12 games to go, he probably won't return this year. But yeah, right. Thank God he's okay.
Yeah, I mean, the 7-day IL, concussion IL for him right now is this kind of the tentative placement, right? I mean, these are probably situations where they have to wait for probably some sort of swelling and bruising to kind of go away before they probably have a better picture of what actually might, unfortunately, possibly be injured, right? I mean, where he got hit, there's definitely a possibility of some sort of bone fracture, whether it's didn't quite get him at the eye, so something like an orbital is probably not in play, right? But certainly some sort of potential skull fracture is always there, or anything like that, or even, they haven't actually outright diagnosed him with a concussion. It's just concussion-like symptoms right now. So, I mean, he could very well just have a concussion, ends up being, and that might sideline him. But yeah, I'm with you, Kyle. I doubt we'll see him the next 12 games. Now, obviously, he could come off the IL in theory Friday, but I doubt it. I mean, obviously, I think something like that, he'll probably just, I wouldn't be surprised if he does mound work and stuff like that, but I think we're looking at competitive-wise, his season's probably done. Circle back here. There we go. Keenan Middleton, planning on throwing a bullpen session today, or rather tomorrow or Wednesday at Yankee Stadium. Obviously, we know he's pretty much nearing a comeback. Could come off the IL pretty much at any time within the next couple of days here when he becomes eligible. And Kyle, we suspect that as long as his bullpen session looks good, that'll probably be the case.
Yeah, it'll be a good addition back in the pen. Like I said, I thought he threw the ball well, and the numbers show. Only 1 earned run in 12 innings or something since the Yankees acquired him. So yeah, and he's going to be a free agent at the end of the year. So if he does get in a few games over this 12-game stretch, maybe the Yankees will think about bringing him back with some kind of deal.
Yeah, no, definitely. I wouldn't mind him coming back at this point. Now, here's the one that caught both me and you off guard. And normally it's you sending me the news, but I sent you this because I was kind of blown away when I saw it, because when we last talked about this guy, we thought, he was done for the year, right? I mean, that's the way literally the line that I read was he was being shut down for the year. Except Saturday afternoon, I look and I see that Frankie Montas was being sent to Scranton Wilkes-Barre for a rehab assignment on Sunday, yesterday. That line for him, 1 inning of work with 1 run on 1 hit, 1 walk, and 2 strikeouts. But Frankie Montas, apparently there's an outside chance he could throw next week in the big leagues. Like, it's very crazy to me, the situation with him, obviously with the shoulder injury and everything. But apparently, 3 weeks ago when we were talking about him, we thought he was done for the year. But I don't know what happened in the weeks since that we last talked about him, Kyle. But he's rehabbing with Scranton Wilkes-Barre right now.
So it's either the Yankees are just paying him to rehab, and then he becomes a free agent, or, like I said to you jokingly, he will help the Yankees clinch a playoff spot on October 1st, the final game of the year in Kansas City, and he will pitch in relief and throw like an inning, and he won't be eligible for the playoff roster if they do go on and make the playoffs, but I jokingly just said that because that would be typical Yankee-like for that to happen. But I know it's a long shot, and I actually don't think we'll end up seeing him in the big leagues. I do think this is just literally rehabbing in Scranton when their season's over. That's it.
I disagree. I know you said it jokingly, but I think there is a shred of truth. I think we will be seeing Frankie Montas pitch for the Yankees next week. It's one of those gut feelings, like, why else would they be doing it at this point? It'd be the most Brian Cashman, frankly, led thing that I've ever seen if Frankie Montas came back and threw next week. Not even a question in my mind.
So, either in that road series in Toronto or the final series in Kansas City, you're thinking, right?
Absolutely. Because think about it too, right? And I wouldn't change up what they're doing right now. Like, they clearly have found a groove, whatever they're doing, right? Between Cole, Rodon, King, and Schmidt, and then this weird, like, cacophony of, like, Johnny Brito taking bulk innings of relief in a bullpen start by probably Hamilton now that he's back healthy and stuff like that, and whatever. So, I that's my gut feeling at this point. Like, why else would he be doing it? But I would keep it as is at this point.
Just so he's on track and he can continue his off season normally.
I suppose.
But yeah, I mean, I guess like I get where you're coming from, and I could see that happening too. But then also I could see the Yankees just letting him rehab and then not bringing him up, and then just ending the season without him. Like, I don't know. But yeah, it's interesting. I never expected to see his name penciled in for Scranton, and they're off today, of course, so we'll probably won't hear about him if he comes in relief tomorrow or whatever. But I guess if there was a move to be made for him, I would probably be like Nick Ramirez going down. I would assume.
Yeah, I mean,
because like who else? Like Bowman, I guess.
Well, about that.
Or wait, he was.
Bowman's already been
sent
optioned.
down,
Yeah.
And then Savage was hurt.
Yeah.
Oh, McAllister would be an option.
Right. Right, because Hamilton was brought. It worked out well, but the activation, the placement of Mishevitz to the IL allowed Hamilton to be activated without making a move.
And of course, I know that because I posted about it. I got so many names in my head.
You're good. Yeah, but that does it for the roster news. So, for the Yankees, off today, and then Toronto comes in for 3 games starting tomorrow night. 7:05 first pitch on Yes, Yusei Kikuchi against Clark Schmidt. Wednesday, 7:05 on Prime Video, Kevin Gausman versus Michael King. And then Thursday, 7:05 on Yes, Jose Barrios against Garrett Cole. So, this Blue Jay team has had a wild 7 days, more or less, from getting swept to doing the sweeping. Kind of part of this weird, and this is why the Yankees are technically in it right now, is you have a bunch of these teams that literally are facing each other at what happens to be the same time, and it's weird how the cycle went. I think it went, the Rangers swept Toronto, and then the Rangers swept Cleveland. Toronto got swept. I can't remember who, but then Toronto swept over. It was just such a weird, like, cyclical thing. Like, I don't know. But, yeah, I mean, here's the thing. I have a decent feeling about this series for the Yankees. I think the pitching's in a really good spot right now. I think that's leading me to be probably a bit more confident than I need to be. I think the Yankees get 2 or 3 against Toronto. And I know that it probably should be a sweep. I just don't see that necessarily happening. I think, unfortunately, the Yankees get undone by, it's crazy saying it, by like a two-run Garrett at this point, right? Where the offense in these third games of these series appear to be the spots where they kind of fall off to a degree, and I don't know why, but it's been the case. I think getting matched up against Garrett right now, where he's just kind of been in this rut of like having one bad inning where he gives up 2 runs and then that's pretty much it. Kind of leads me to believe that. So I think the Yankees get 2 or 3 though against Toronto. The pitching leaves me in a good spot to make that prediction. And you know, Toronto's a weird team right now. They got to me they got a lot of dysfunction that people aren't exactly talking about right now either. I mean, Alek Manoah's, even though he wasn't a headline over the weekend, was the Toronto headline all week last week. So I feel probably more confident than I should be, but I'm going Yankees 2 or 3.
Yeah, and they have played pretty well against the Blue Jays over the last few years, 4-3 this year. So I agree. I'm going to say 2 of 3, and yeah, I think they really need to sweep this series to actually feel more like they have a shot at making the playoffs. But just win 2 of 3 and then maybe sweep them next week in Toronto. But also, before we move on, I just want to say this. There's another reason to believe for all Yankee fans that are a little, like, not believing right now. The Blue Jays play the Rays 6 more times. The Mariners play the Rangers 6 times. And the Astros 3 times. So one of those teams are going to fall way behind because they're playing each other.
Yeah.
So if one beats up on one team, they're going to be, kicked out. And if the Yankees, take care of business against the Blue Jays, things could really get moved around. So it's not that they need significant help because it's not like the Blue Jays are playing the A's for 6. They're playing a team that the Rays are still fighting for the division. So they're going to be all in.
Right.
The Mariners and Rangers, they're going to beat up on each other. So there is a possibility, but again, the Yankees have to take care of their own business, and not sweeping Pittsburgh and not sweeping Detroit twice kills them.
Yeah. I was going to say the only team technically in there that has clinched a spot is Tampa. But as you mentioned, right, they're going for the division. So they, like you said, they're going to be guns blazing still.
Yeah, so there is a chance if the Yankees have to do their own part. And if they don't do their own part, there's no point of looking at this other stuff. But based on the matchups, there is a shot.
You have to, right? Like you said, just the way everything shakes out right now. It's the only reason why we're talking about kind of like how they have this late push. And it's kind of the same degree to the Mets, honestly, in a way, too, even though theirs is a much more longer shot. There is a path for the Mets. So let's jump into that here. The Mets completed the sweep of the Diamondbacks on Thursday, excuse me, and then dropped 2 of 3 with Cincinnati, though, over the weekend. But, again, I thought collectively, you want to know what, and we've dunked on the Met bullpen a lot this year, but they were put in some tough spots, and honestly, they put themselves in some tough spots over the weekend. But they held tough against a very good Cincinnati lineup, and it was just a case of kind of like the Yankees in a way on Sunday, just they couldn't quite capitalize offensively when those opportunities allowed themselves. And, I don't want to say, like, jump on anybody, like, in particular type thing, right? But, like, Derek Law got a save, for instance, in this series, and, like, it's Derek Law. It's not, Lexi Diaz or somebody like that, you know what I mean? And kind of the stuff I mean by, like, just not kind of jumping at opportunities when you have it type deal. But, that being said...
Correction.
Sure.
It was not a sweep of the Diamondbacks. It was 3 of 4.
Oh, that's right. I forgot.
They won the last 3, though. If it was a 3-game series, they
I forgot it was a 4-game series.
Yeah. But it's all good. I didn't want to sound crazy.
Whatever. It's a 3-game sweep of 3 games that I'm recognizing. How about that, then?
Yes. Losing the first one and then winning 3 in a row, and the last one by a lot. Yeah, that's great.
Against a very good pitcher in Merrill Kelly. So, but either way, yeah, I mean, you kind of go from that high of like that offense to this kind of the weekend kind of being, I don't know about hungover on it or anything like that, but it's just tough because like I said, they're for the Mets. Now obviously it's a longer path, but I mean it's the path is there. I mean it's not great, but there is a path for them to the playoffs somehow, and they play. Look, for example, they play Miami to start the week this week, right? And then they also, to cap off the week, it's 4 against the Phillies,
And then
who are ahead of them.
And then 3 more against the Marlins next week, and 3 more against the Phillies.
Right. I mean, it's teams ahead of them. And obviously other stuff has to kind of happen outside of, the East. There's
The Cubs are collapsing.
You got the Cubs, you got the Diamondbacks, who played each other over the weekend, right, and beat up on each other. But, fact of the matter is you got a couple outside factors. But if you're the Mets, you weirdly control your own destiny in a way at this point. And they appear to, kind of like the Yankees, it appears as though they're not quite going down without a fight anyway. I don't know if you feel the same way, but that's kind of the way I feel about it. I mean, it's, like I said, their pitching over the weekend I thought was great. Offense wasn't where it needed to be, but, why do I feel confident about these teams all of a sudden? Now I'm starting to confuse myself.
Yeah, I guess there is a possibility the teams in front of them have to do a lot of losing. They're 8.5 out, 12 games to go. They're at 69 wins, so even if they were to go 11-1, that puts them at 80 wins. The Cubs and Marlins already have 78 right now, so it's pretty tough. But I guess if multiple teams just collapse, there's a shot. But they also could just at least, instead of making it 8.5 out, at least, by the time the season ends, be 4 out or 3 out. So they could make it a little better and put more pressure on these teams and spoil the Phillies. They have the top wild card right now. Other teams could jump them if the Mets play well against them. So, yeah, there's things that could move around, but it's just pretty tough because the Mets are at 69 wins. If they're at 73, 74, then maybe we could be talking a little more. But yeah, again, they're not mathematically eliminated, so stuff could happen.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's something that we talked about, a few weeks ago, was the fact that, this is probably a team you don't want to face if you're really in that bubble spot, because it's pretty apparent that they're scrappy enough, and we know that they probably wouldn't mind playing spoiler at this point, especially the Phillies, right?
Yeah, and they could push the Marlins right down, because the Marlins are barely in the playoff. Actually, they're kind of tied with the Reds right now. So if, say, they win 4 of 6 against the Marlins might be pushed out. And the Cubs have lost 5 in a row, and they're 2-8 in their last 10. And somehow they still have a wild card. They're tied with the Marlins, actually.
Yeah.
So, this wild card race in the National League is going to come down literally to the final day.
Yeah. For the Cubs, a bit of the opposite, right? They went on, a 10-game win streak a few weeks ago, and that kind of propelled them up. And now, they didn't look impressive against Arizona.
The Phillies are 4-6 in their last 10. They're not playing great either anymore like they once were. So, yeah, we could see some movement. It's going to be a lot of fun, and that's what makes baseball so fun in late September.
Yeah. Yeah, the Phillies appear to be more concerned about talking about Atlanta for whatever reason right now. Anyway, let's get back on the Met track a little bit here. We talk about a couple of these same pitchers over and over again, but it's kind of tough not to. And you have to give some kudos to Jose Quintana again here. Goes out yesterday, pitches extremely well again. I wouldn't say put the team on his back. The offense was kind of more there yesterday than throughout the weekend collectively, but again, for a guy who I don't think he's auditioning for anywhere else, obviously he's under contract next year with the Mets, but, for a guy who's probably auditioning for that 2 spot in that rotation next year, he's really gone out and certainly have stepped up the performance. And, well, maybe not stepped up. He's pitched collectively overall just really, really well since coming back off the injured list.
Yeah, the big thing with him is he's not walking a lot. He's given them length. He's given up, 2-3 runs per start, it seems like the last few outings.
And that's the way he's always been, though.
He's just giving them chances to win. And the crazy stat, I don't have the exact number, but when Mets starters go 6 or 7 innings, they win a lot of games. So, yeah, I agree. He's been pitching very well. Of course, Kodai Senga's been right there with him pitching well. And Joey Lucchese's pitching well. So they're getting some good pitching. There's just still times where the bullpen either blows a late lead or, kind of puts the game out of reach for the offense to rally. So, yeah, they're still playing pretty pretty good baseball for the most part. They're actually 9-9 their last 18, so 500 baseball, not bad.
I'm about saying, I know he caught the loss Friday, but like David Peterson, like he looked well outside of when he got pulled in the sixth on Friday. And personally speaking, when they pulled him, and I mean it worked out well, but I wouldn't have pulled him when they did. I mean, he had just given up, I believe it was a 2 RBI double at that point, and like, oh no, it was a home run rather. Sorry, and then he walked a couple guys, and then they pulled him. Like I just don't know if I would have pulled him exactly, but you know, for a lot of these guys, right? I mean, Peterson's been this guy who, again. You know, we talk about a bunch. He's been back and forth predominantly since he got initially called up a few years ago. And, you know, we talk about Lucchese, where he might end up next year. We don't know anyway. But, like, you know, for a lot of these guys, I mean, they're just stepping up, whether it's for themselves or for the team at this point. But they're stepped up at the right time to just at least show, like, hey, we can go out here and we can still compete and kind of do these things and allow us to at least have these opportunities to go out and win some ball games late in the year. And hey, like you said, Kyle, you have to remember, right? They played the Reds this past weekend, and that loss yesterday did the Reds no favors. They got themselves back technically into the playoffs Friday and Saturday, only to find themselves now back on the outside looking in technically. But I think it's technically a half game. But that's just how chaotic the NL wild card is right now.
Yeah, and how about the Mets offense scoring 8 runs yesterday with no homers?
Right.
And Daniel Vogelback coming off the bench and hitting a 3-run double.
He had a weird-ass series, man. He had a double Friday night, too, even. I was just like, what is going on with him?
I've noticed he's been coming off the bench, too, at times. It's kind of weird. And yesterday it was a 6th inning. He's coming off the bench, and it was a 5-2 game. It's just, I don't know, just odd timing, it kind of seems like for me, at least.
Matchups.
If he's going to come off if he's going to come out middle of the game, or come in middle of the game, why not just start him? So, yeah, he busted the game open, as you would say, because that 3-run double made it 7-2. So, yeah, no homers yesterday and put up 8 runs. The offense was just clicking. Ronnie Mauricio was hitting over 300 his last 50 at-bats. Alvarez had a homer recently, I believe. Yeah, he did.
Yeah, well, he's back. I know September he's batting back above 300 again. I know that.
Yeah, and Pete Alonso had a chance in that 1-run loss over the weekend, had a chance to tie the game, runner on second, or 2 runners on, 2 outs, and grounded out. So that was a tough loss. They had opportunities to win that series and just couldn't get it done.
Yeah, you know, their opportunities were there. That's why, you know, at the end of the day, you got to just capitalize on them at the end. Not a ton of roster news here for the Mets. They claimed Anthony Kay from off waivers from the Cubs and outrighted him to AAA Syracuse. But I do want to give a shout-out here to one of baseball's favorite characters recently. Bartolo Colon officially retired, did so as a Met yesterday. And, yeah, I mean, this is a guy who, at his peak, and I know you probably don't remember his peak all that much, Kyle, but he was about as dominating as a pitcher during that time as there was out there. And personally, when he comes on the Hall of Fame ballot, he'd have my vote. But probably a guy who won't be making it to the Hall of Fame. But tell you what, he was a fantastic pitcher for a lot of years and ended up, like I said, becoming a whether he wanted to be or not, he ended up becoming a huge character and personality within the game the final years he was playing.
Yeah, sorry for stalling a bit. I'm just trying to find his best year.
Probably 2004 or 5, I'm guessing.
2005.
Yeah.
3.48 ERA. He went 21-8.
Cy Young with the Angels, I think, that year.
22 innings. Not sure about the Cy Young.
No, probably not then. He was with the Angels, though, that year.
Strikeouts. 158, yeah.
Him and my guy Fladito.
Won 247 games. Career ERA was a 4.12, but yeah, as you said, mixed in some really, really good years. His last 2016 with the Mets wasn't bad, 3.43.
Yeah.
Almost pitched 200 innings, so big sample size. But yeah, 2012 was good, 3.43. Boston, he only pitched 4 games that year, he only won 4 games that year, but Yeah, some
What
good
year was
years.
the Yankee comeback year? Was that 2011?
Yeah, 2011.
Yeah, with the Yankees, he had a really good year. Kind of resurrected, honestly, probably the back end of his career.
Yeah, he had exactly 4 ERA, 8 and 10. Even though I don't really care about pitchers win-loss records, 164 innings. Yeah, he pitched quite a bit in 2011. Not a great ERA, but gave the team a chance to win a lot of times, and then followed that up in Oakland with a 3.43. So, yeah, pretty good pitcher. Not sure he makes the Hall of Fame, but
It's one of those interesting cases.
yeah, Bartolo Colon. How old was he, or how old is he? I should say.
Oh God, he's got to be mid-40s at least.
27,
Yeah, I mean,
22, 40. Wait, no way.
is he 48?
I think 49.
Sheesh. He was pitching in the Mexican League a couple of years ago. I know that, but
He's 49 years old.
Jesus. Hey, I mean, he's a guy who, like I said, I mean, he's going to have an interesting Hall of Fame case.
He was born in 73 and he debuted in 97.
Yep.
So 26 years ago he debuted. Wow.
Yeah.
I won't speak on what I was doing 26 years ago because I wasn't alive.
Not alive, yeah. I was 3 years old. So, yeah, fun times. All right, as I mentioned, the Mets in Miami to start the week. 3 games for them, beginning tonight at 6:40 first pitch on SNY. Jose Buto against Edward Cabrera tomorrow, 6:40 on SNY. Joey Lucchesi against Braxton Garrett. Battle of lefties tomorrow. And then Wednesday, 6:40 SNY or Fox Sports 1, depending upon your market. Kodai Senga against To Be Determined. So, do I dare be that guy? I don't think I can be, but I do think,
Marlins have won 3 in a row against the Braves, remember.
yeah, but the Braves were hungover the past 2 nights, especially, or 2 days, rather.
Be careful. I think you're going to say something.
I'm going 2 of 3.
Okay.
I think the Mets get 2 of 3. I don't think they sweep. Part of me really did want to, but Edward Cabrera, man, when he's on, but when he's off, he's off. Same thing with Braxton Garrett, although he's just been consistent here lately. So I do think the Mets get 2 of 3, though. Kind of, again, I think they play a little bit of spoiler at this point while kind of keeping their playoff hopes alive, to be honest.
I think this is where they officially die off. It's fun while it lasted, but I think the Marlins,
Not to get off topic, you hear that? Okay. I want to make sure I'm not going crazy.
I think somebody's in the bathroom behind you.
Sounds like somebody's hammering. Yeah.
But yeah, I'm going to say Marlins sweep, back-to-back sweeps. I just think the momentum, I mean, I get it, you know, okay, fine, the Braves might have been hungover, but whatever, you still don't get blown out the way they did yesterday. And I just feel like that momentum that they built beating that team of that caliber with that offense, the pitching's probably as confident as it's ever been, and I think at home the Marlins just sweep the Mets.
Yeesh. Brutal scenes and possibly end the Mets year officially.
Yeah, R.I.P. the Mets.
All right, so before we get out of here, let's talk some Rochester and Syracuse. AAA baseball entering the final week of its season this week. The last of the minor league ranks to do so regular season-wise. The other ranks either already in their playoffs or begin their playoffs this week. For Rochester, only were able to win 2 of 6 against Lehigh Valley in their final home stand of the season. This week they're on the road in Indianapolis to take on the Indians, the AAA affiliate of the Pittsburgh Pirates. But let's do the roster moves first here for them and then jump into kind of the main storyline there. With them, right-hand pitcher Jose Mexico was released. Matt Adams activated off the injured list. Corey Abbott was recalled to Washington, and Amos Wilmingham was optioned from Washington. Rochester, though, officially named their 2023 team award winners for the year. Begin with the MVP of the season and justifiably Travis Blankenhorn getting MVP for them. Collectively, great offensive year. Obviously, milestone year for him that resulted here in the past few weeks being a Washington National, so well deserved to him. Darren Baker was named most popular player, very good player. I'm really excited to, I would imagine, more than likely be back at least to start the year in Rochester next season. My personal hope is that the Nationals at least add him to the 40-man. great player, great young player, and obviously a fan favorite. And then always the ones that I look forward to here are the Civic Minded Award for Rochester. And this year there are 2 of them going to Cody Wilson and Jake Knoll. So congratulations all of them on their awards. And Kyle, like I said, I think justifiably so on all of them. Kind of no surprise winners across the board there in a way. But that being said, I think the one we do play-wise have to recognize would be Blankenhorn because his team MVP season resulted, obviously, like I said, the past few weeks he's been up with Washington and making a contribution at the big league level.
He's such a good hitter. It's so weird to me how he hasn't gotten like an extended opportunity at the big leagues. He just rakes at AAA, and seems like he has the power and does everything right. I don't even know how old he is.
I think he's my age.
Yeah, is he ever going to get a shot in the big leagues for like an extended period of time? Like I know he's been called up, but just never seems like he's actually been there long enough for him to get consistent at bats. And we know how that is with players. Look at Oswaldo Cabrera for the Yankees right now. He's playing every day. What is he doing? He's hitting. I mean, that's just how it rolls in Major League Baseball. You get consistent at bats, you perform better. Usually. I know there's a few, scenarios where that doesn't always work out. But yeah, I definitely agree with him being the MVP. Even when he was in Syracuse, just raked. So yeah, good to see. And Matt Adams is back. I remember that guy. How long has he been on the IL? It feels like we haven't heard about him in a
He's
while.
been on there a few weeks, yeah.
So yeah, Matt Adams, power hitter.
Okay. And I want to give, again, we talk about it a ton, but kudos to him for hanging out the whole year and honestly being a big, in my mind, offensively, I know he was leading a couple categories throughout the year, but just being that veteran presence and a guy who, at this point, just clearly loves the game and wants another opportunity at the big league level, right? I don't think you sign these contracts not wanting that opportunity, right? But playing the whole year in Rochester when, a bunch of those major league guys have kind of come and gone throughout the year with Rochester, and but he made a contribution all year when he's been out on the field, and I'd say certainly probably made a contribution multiple times over in the locker room this year, so definitely true. For Syracuse, they split with the Who Sox in Massachusetts last week, 3 apiece. They return home for their final series of the season this week against Scranton Wilkes-Barre.
Are you going?
No, this week is not good. Tonight, actually, wait. Tomorrow night kind of is like a free-ish night for me, is it? I can't remember the top of my head. This is bad.
Going to another.
I got a lot of stuff going on in the next couple weeks. I can't even keep my head straight. But yeah, either way. All right, so I need everybody here before I say this. These are 2 different people, okay? And if I misspeak, that's on me, and I apologize. Third baseman Jose Peroza was assigned from AA Binghamton, while at the same time, shortstop Jose Peraza was activated from the injured list.
No way. Is that real?
That is correct. David Griffin also was signed from AA Binghamton, and Tomas Nido placed on the injured list. That happened yesterday, so his season, at least at the AAA level, is done. But Nido actually, since he ended up being DFA'd by the Mets and he spent the rest of the year in Syracuse, he actually did really, really well. A guy who I think a lot of people would probably, I wouldn't say struggle, but probably just kind of play as an afterthought. But he just went out there and continued to play some really good baseball, things considered. And unfortunately, a bit of an unfortunate end to the 2023 season for Nido. But for Syracuse, Rochester, they're both done for the year, obviously, right after the end of this week. Eliminated from playoff contention, but and this is something we'll talk more about here in the coming days. I really hope both coaching staffs and managers come back for both the teams next year. Syracuse, I know they struggled collectively throughout the year across, especially on the pitching side of things, but the Dick Stott-led crew there, I thought, made some improvements team-wise that you could definitely see from last year. So I hope they get a second year in Syracuse. And Matt Lecroy, I hope comes back and makes a 4th season in Rochester. I know this year probably didn't go as well as they had hoped, but they played, in my mind, a lot more competitive ball than they did last year even, which is saying something considering, like I said, up until June last year, they were the best team in the International League. But I think collectively this year they were just better. And I think that makes a difference when just having some continuity, right? And we're talking about Rochester and Syracuse, too. And I know people might laugh when I say this, but it's two of the more historical baseball cities, honestly, in professional baseball. Two of the longest tenured teams that have long-standing community relations within the cities anyway. And I know stuff like this goes a long way with the fans and the community when the coaching staffs are there year in and year out.
Yeah, unless they want to move on, I don't see why you wouldn't bring them back. And the thing with minor leagues, it's so hard to judge an overall record because of the movement that goes on.
Especially for both these teams this year.
Yeah, I mean, look at the Mets. Like, the pitching, it's like, if you went through and counted all the moves, which I think the game notes do have the amount of moves that have been made this year, it's an unbelievable amount. There's always movement. And that's the thing. The team's not always the same throughout those, from April till now, September. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, it's, like, hard to blame, like, we're going to let go of this manager because they lost, 80 games. Mm-hmm. I think that's just tough in minor league baseball to do that.
Agreed.
And also, quickly on Tomas Nido, you're right. I couldn't believe this. He was hitting .282 at Syracuse in 38 games with 4 homers and 12 RBIs. So you were right. I didn't even know he was hitting that well.
He was stealing bags, by the way, too, in Syracuse.
Let's see. Can I find the stat on that?
The game I went to a couple weeks ago, he had one. And I was just like, Speed Demon Tomas Nido was just like something I didn't have.
4.
Yeah.
That
was not on my bingo card for him to have multiple stolen bags.
And a note on Blankenhorn. I just went and looked at his major league stats. How the heck has this guy only played in 35 big league games?
Right.
In 6 years.
Yeah.
That's what I mean.
And probably the bulk of them have been within the past month, I'm assuming.
10. His most was 2021. He had 23 games.
Yeah.
See what I mean? How is the guy ever going to perform at the big league level doing that?
Yeah.
Or he did have 24 games in 2021, and he hit 174. But again, that's only 23 plate appearances. So I just don't get it. Like, the guy rakes in AAA, and you would think he'd get an extended shot somewhere, even on a team that's not contending. Like, I don't know. I'm kind of shocked by it.
Well, Washington, I think, is given that opportunity right now anyway. Well, trying to anyway. All right, so that will take care of Concrete Jungle for today. We'll be back Thursday at 11 a.m. So Kyle, big week ahead for both New York teams then.
Yeah, I'm actually just hoping the Yankees make this interesting, just so the games are more watchable. They have been recently, but even, since Jason Dominguez has gone down, it's like, man, it's just the vibes aren't the same. Like, that weekend in Houston was unbelievable.
Yeah.
It really was. Like, to go beat up on that team in their building where the Yankees, have just been embarrassed in the past. It was just so awesome. And 14-6 since the 28th. I mean, I guess you can't ask for much more from a team that just hasn't had it all year.
Uh-huh.
So, yeah, hopefully it's a fun week. The other sports should be fun. The Bills this weekend again. So, yeah, should be a good week.
Yeah. All right, Kyle, we'll talk again then on Thursday. Until then, everybody, enjoy the week. We'll talk with everybody then.
Matt Milano is the